What's an experience you don't ever want to go through again? Being stuck in a traffic jam for 7 hours. And when I say stuck, I literally mean it. We didn't move at all for hours. People got out of their car and started to walk around the highway and stuff and literally picnicked on the asphalt. Some kids even started playing soccer on the emergency lane. We were stuck in a barely moving traffic jam from 9:30 p.m. to 12:30 p.m., that's 15 hours, on our way to the first Bonnaroo festival. Traffic would move literally 6 inches every hour or so. So frustrating. Fortunately, we had plenty of food and water. Many people were stuck on the interstate on their way to Florida or wherever, so a lot of us wandered the road passing out bottled water, granola bars, anything. One group even set up a grill and fed the older people stuck in traffic. A nightmare, and I'll never return. Did you know that the longest traffic jam in the world was said to occur as long as 12 days? This would be the China-Tibet Highway. I imagine that is the ultimate punishment. Having my house flood. Especially when it's a natural disaster, because there isn't enough labor. 3 years later and we still have bits and pieces unfinished. I feel you. 1 year post-Hurricane Florence here. Business was flooded and we are still not back in there. No flood insurance at the time, so I spent the first 6 months after the storm just trying to find a way to finance repairs to the building. There are still people in the community sleeping on family members' couches. Hoping everything continues to come together for you and your loved ones. Houstonian here. I haven't flooded, but watching my neighbors and friends go through the repeat flooding is heartbreaking. Neighbors will finally get back into their house and the next storm with unprecedented rainfall will happen soon after. They are essentially stuck in this pattern every few years because they are unable to sell their house. The resident came in and took a chair. Asked if I wanted my parents to leave the room for the conversation. I said it was fine that they stay. She then told me my 2.5-year-old had leukemia. I wouldn't wish the last year on anyone. Getting a call that my son had gotten hit by a car and was en route to trauma center. F that day. My wife and 2 of my kids were in a car accident when I was at work a few years ago. Some stupid young bitch decided red meant go, and getting to the hospital with all those thoughts about them being badly hurt or worse running through my head was horrific. Luckily though they were all fine physically, bit of whiplash etc., but my daughter still remembers it and will bring it up sometimes. People need to start respecting cars more. They are speeding death machines. That stupid bitch almost destroyed everything I hold dear because she needed to get somewhere so important that she almost killed 4 people. Kidney stone. Yes. God yes. Awful stupid things. And I know people who have awful diets that consist of just chugging pop all the time or that sort of habits and they never get them. I drink water like a damn ocean creature all the time and I still get them. And once you've had them one time you know the pain of them, and if you ever even have a twinge of pain again that signals they are coming back, you go into total paranoia state. I've never chugged water, cut out all the salt and other tips like that so fast in my life until I felt that kidney stone movement again out of the blue. And I'm a chick, it's even shittier for men. My sympathies for guys, because if they were hell for me, I can't imagine what it's like for someone with a penis to pass those damn things. Waking up to my mother screaming and crying after finding out my oldest sister had passed away from internal bleeding and complications with her liver. All I heard as soon as I woke up were the howling cries of my mum. I thought it hurt to see her cry, but when she cried like this, I lost it internally. Staying with and hearing my grandma cry and call out for my grandpa in her sleep in the days after he passed truly broke my heart into a million tiny pieces. My grandpa had a habit of calling out for my grandma as soon as he wakes up, to wake her up as well if she wasn't already. When she passed, he kept doing it for years after. He briefly switched to calling out for my dog, his favorite doggo, when she passed, but back to my grandma after a few weeks. He has stopped doing it now and usually calls out for me or my aunt, to wake us up if he needs help. But those first few years without my grandma and hearing him yell his nickname for her was heartbreaking. My house burning to the ground. Losing the only place I've ever called home. Losing all my belongings. Losing everything. But that wasn't what hit me the most. What hit me the most was standing there watching my house fully engulfed in flames. And knowing there is absolutely fucking nothing I could do to help. That was the worst feeling of my life. Being stuck in a mental hospital. It's not like in the movies, but it's the feeling of being so close to freedom yet so far away. Yes. I was in a general unit. Most everyone was nice, but there was like 2 or 3 out of like 10 that gave me a weird vibe. One being my roommate. I hated it. There was nothing to do except take pills and talk in group. The day I knew I was getting out, my mom came to get me. She had to wait 3 hours in the parking lot. When I asked what time I was leaving, they kept saying, "When your ride gets here." I called my mom over an hour ago and she's been sitting outside waiting. Becoming homeless. Truly a terrifying experience, and I never want it to happen again. I remember my church doing a secret mission trip that was actually a trip to a homeless simulation. It was an experience some people set up where for a weekend they'd make you go through the life of someone who is homeless. Your supplies were limited, your meals per day were limited or dealt in an unfair way, and a lot of the activities were things like gathering cans or searching for food. The simulation ended up traumatizing me on an emotional level because I was isolated by the people I thought trusted and loved me as much as I did them. I was almost treated like an outcast to my friends, and the only person who cared enough about me to give me the time of day was a random girl who had no association to my own group. It made me really realize how lonely it is to be homeless. Maybe not everyone feels the same way, and I was only in this simulation for a few days, but it's a crippling feeling. No one deserves to be alone, especially in situations where you already have nothing. I'm really glad you're out of that mess, and I hope that you're doing so much better now. Living paycheck to paycheck. I'm in a comfortable position now and don't need to worry about bills or if I can eat that day. The feeling of abandonment when one of my parents went off to go party, do drugs and be a complete douche and never call for 12 years. Pretty convenient to reconnect when I'm an adult and all the hard work is over. I feel you. My mom is turning 50 soon and couch surfs and calls me for money pretty much quarterly at this point. I've never given her a cent. She left when I was 10. Now 12 years later, when I have a career, it's super convenient for her to suddenly get a phone and try reconnecting. This is nothing compared to others, but I'd have to say getting potassium put into your body through and for. That shit burns like nothing else. I'm a type 1 diabetic and have gone DKA a few times, and part of the recovery in the hospital is that they have to give you potassium as insulin apparently can lower it. It may be a horse pill, but always ask for it in pill form if at all possible. You can even ask to have the pills cut in half and for some apple sauce to get them down. I had to have emergency surgery to stop the blood loss I was experiencing. I lost enough blood that they did 2 transfusions and a potassium drip afterwards. I woke up at 2 a.m. screaming for someone to help. The nurse ran in and had to hold me down to keep me from ripping the 4th out. The only vein I had open was on the side of my wrist, so it felt like my elbow had been lit on fire. They tried to lower it, but it was still too much. They just gave up and gave me the horse pills instead. Never again. Being horribly behind on a school subject with an exam coming up, I still have weird nightmare-wide dreams about this scenario. I can't stand that this scenario is kind of looked at as, oh, millions of people go through this in school all the time, deal with it. No man, This shit is so anxiety-inducing and downright scary sometimes. The fact that it's a common problem shouldn't mean it can be overlooked. Hope all went well for you. Appendicitis. Sucks. As soon as my surgery was done, I had the stomach bug, worst experience by far. I hated having to figure out how to poop and pee again for the 2 weeks after surgery because I felt like I was going to tear out my internal and external stitches. Talking someone out of a suicide. Last year, after a very emotionally draining day for me, a friend who has been suicidal for a long time called me to come see him. We lived in college, so it's not like I had to travel far. At probably around 3 a.m. I was tired, we'd had an event that night, and I had had a very long day with some things back home. Needless to say, I was not in my best or most helpful mood, and I had sobered up and just wanted to go to bed. Honestly, I've mostly blocked out what he said to me, but I could tell he was having a bad night. He was being super self-pitying and just wasn't accepting anything I was saying to try and help or make him feel better, which I know isn't his fault, but I also just couldn't manage it at the time. I told him his best bet was to go to sleep and I'd talk to him in the morning, as I was going to be no help. Next morning I woke up with a message from him saying he'd gone home for the week but he was okay. I saw him maybe 4 days later and he told me after I spoke to him that night he tried to kill himself. He didn't blame me or anything like that at all, but obviously I was shocked. It took me months to realize how much that actually affected me, and it's still pretty hard to get my head around.